everyone, Nikki again. This is going to be part 2 of my discussion between the Harry Potter books versus the movie adaptations, and we're going to get started. Number 5, Order of the Phoenix, is where I think things get a little lost. At the beginning of number 5, when everybody's in Grimmauld Place, Molly Weasley is trying to get everyone to stop asking questions about the Order and about the war by making them clean the house top to bottom. In one of the scenes, they find a locket that everybody makes a game of trying to open because no one can open it. And in the end of that, they end up just throwing it away because they think it's just a piece of trash. It's just this old locket that can't even open, so it's useless. That comes back later in number 6, number 7. It's going to touch more on that locket, and I think it would have been important just to showcase that because it's such an important object later on in the series. And the fact that they had it in their hands and just threw it away kind of just comes back again to bite them in the butt. Another big thing that I think they should have left in the movie was part of Snape's memory of when he was a kid at Hogwarts. In the memory from the movie, we see that James Potter is picking on Snape with his friends, and that Snape's whole experience at school is just awful because he's being bullied by James Potter. In this scene of the book, Lily Evans, who's later Lily Potter, Harry's mom, comes and starts screaming at James Potter and just saying, "You can't do that. You have to be nicer to this guy." She doesn't like James Potter at all. Like, she's just not friends with him. She's yelling at him because he's a bully. But Snape, who doesn't want to be defended by Lily, ends up calling her a mudblood, and she stops defending him, which comes back later when we actually learn more about Snape's background. In number 4, Harry finds out about Neville's parents. In number 5, we actually meet them. And Harry, Ron, and Hermione are at St. Mungo's Hospital, the wizarding hospital, after Mr. Weasley's attack. And they end up running into Neville. And Neville's visiting his parents, and they actually see firsthand the damage that Bellatrix Lestrange and Barty Crouch Jr. actually did on them. In the movie, Sirius was showing Harry the picture and says this is what happened to them. But in the book, it's Neville who tells his secret. Neville who's saying, these are my parents, and even though they're crazy, they're still my parents. In the movie, we kind of just see he says that he's proud to be their son. We never actually get to see the entire impact that it has. And along those lines with Neville and Professor Trelawney's prophecies, we hear part of her prophecy in the movie when they're in Department of Mysteries with all the crystal balls, about how the Dark Lord will fall by the one who he marks as equal. In the book, there's more to it. In the book, it talks about the kid is going to be born in July, his parents are going to have stood up to the Dark Lord 3 times, and Voldemort's going to mark him as his equal. In the books, Neville Longbottom meets 2 out of those 3 criteria. And the only reason it's Harry is because Harry, unlike Neville, is a half-blood, like Voldemort. In the book, at the end of it, Dumbledore tells Harry that it could have been someone else, but in the movie you never see that Harry's destiny could have been Neville, and it's just that one little caveat about marking him as his equal. The scar on Harry's forehead from when he was a baby is what made Harry Potter the only person that can bring Voldemort's downfall instead of Neville Longbottom. Now we're going to talk about Umbridge. Professor Dolores Umbridge is my least favorite character in the entire series. I think she's even more evil than Voldemort because, as we'll find out in number 6, and I'll get there, Voldemort has a reason that he's a villain. Umbridge is just mean just to be mean, and I think she just deserves to die, more than Voldemort even does. Professor Umbridge hates half people. Mermaids, Hagrid because he's half giant, centaurs, anything that's half a person, or as she says in the movie, near human intelligent, whatever. She's very prejudiced against that. A big difference, I think, from the book and the movie is how Professor Umbridge finds out about Dumbledore's army and when they meet and where. In the movie, it's Cho Chang, Harry's girlfriend, whatever, who tells, and they all end up being mad at her, and Harry and Cho break up because of it, because she was given Veritas Serum, Truth Serum. So I think that's really important to acknowledge, is it's really not her fault. She was given this thing where she has to tell the truth. In the book, It's Cho's friend Marietta Edgecombe who willingly tells Umbridge and the Inquisitorial Squad about Dumbledore's army just because she's trying to look out for her own best interests. So I think it's important that there is a difference between willingly telling on everybody and being forced to. In the book, Cho and Harry break up because when Marietta tells, she gets sneak written in pimples all across her face because Hermione is a genius and jinxed the paper so that anyone who rats on them gets that. And Cho, sticking up for a friend, is just pissed off about it and blaming Harry, and Harry's defending Hermione, saying, again, it's genius. And that's just where they have their falling out. Another Umbridge moment that I kind of think should have been at least mentioned was in year 5, all of the students have to try to figure out a career. What are they going to do after school? And Harry says he wants to be an Auror, a dark wizard catcher, and Umbridge is completely against that, says, I'm going to make sure you never get there. And McGonagall says, I'm going to make sure you do. And in number 6, he and Ron are just kind of milling around, and McGonagall says, aren't you supposed to be in potions, or do you not want to do this anymore? And that's sort of the only mention of Harry's plan to be an Auror, and it's kind of, unless you've read the book and you know what the heck an Auror is, and you know that he wants to be one, it just kind of comes out of the blue. So I think that's maybe something that should have been addressed, even if it wasn't this big scene like it was in the book. Because again, obviously you're not going to get everything from the books into the movies. And this is a movie where Peeves the Poltergeist that we talked about from the first book comes into play. In the book, there's a little more of a gap between where the Weasley twins leave Hogwarts and then where Harry gets that message about Sirius Black being in trouble. During this time period, everybody's just making Umbridge's life hell, including Peeves, who only picks on people because he wants to. In the book, he's doing it because the twins say, give her hell from us. And he's all for that. And even the teachers are helping him. There's a scene in the book where he's trying to unscrew the light bulbs to fall on whoever comes by next, and McGonagall's subtly telling him, turn it the other way, dude. And everybody's just doing their best just to make her life miserable, and it's not obviously an important thing because they just kind of condensed that whole time period into a single day, but it's funny, and I think it shows just how hated this character is. Another thing from this time gap that they kind of gloss over is during this period when Umbridge is in charge and Hogwarts is going to hell in a handbasket, the members of the Order of the Phoenix that are there, McGonagall, Hagrid, Snape, they become incapacitated. Hagrid gets fired and run off campus. McGonagall gets stunned and she ends up in the hospital for a while because she was trying to defend Hagrid, trying to stop these ministry people from trying to take over the school. And Snape is still there, but no one really trusts him. And I think this is an important concept to remember because in the movie, when Harry gets his vision of Sirius Black being tortured, he runs off just to do his own thing without really considering that there's people that can help him. In the book, he knows that there's Order of the Phoenix there, but they're not in a position where they can help at the moment. And again, no one trusts Snape, so he forgot about him. The last thing with Umbridge is it's revealed in the book that she's the one that sent the Dementors after Harry on Privet Drive from the beginning of the book, beginning of the movie, when he ends up using his Patronus. And how we talked about Mrs. Fig and Squibs. Mrs. Fig is a squib who has been living on Privet Drive for 14 plus years to keep an eye on Harry because she knows about magic and she knows about Hogwarts and she knows Dumbledore and all this stuff. And it kind of says that in number 5 movie, but in the book you kind of get a little more of her background, that she's always been there. So that's why I think it would have been important to mention her from the first one. And now we come to number 6, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. And I'm going to be honest, this is my least favorite movie. I think they cut out a lot of stuff that is very important come later, and it's really just a little cheesy. One of the issues I have is their trip down memory lane for Voldemort. In the movie, we kind of see where he comes from and the idea of Horcruxes, and that's it. We see he's from an orphanage, and we see that he is obsessed, kind of trying to make a Horcrux, the thing that keeps you alive if your body dies. But we don't see where that obsession comes from, and we don't see his entire past. In the book, the memories start with Merope, I think I'm saying that right, Gaunt, who is Tom Riddle's mother. And we see that she's living with her family. Her family is just not very good. Her father is a bigot who thinks along the lines of Salazar Slytherin, that pureblood wizards are better than everybody else. Her brother is crazy, likes to nail snakes onto the door and just attack random people. And she's sort of just there trying to stay invisible from them because she just doesn't like it there. But she lives in the same village as Tom Riddle Sr., Voldemort's father, who is a muggle, and she ends up falling in love with him. He's like the rich guy of the valley, and she lives in this little hut. And so she puts a love spell on him. They run off and elope. She gets pregnant and decides she doesn't want her husband there just because of a spell and takes it off. He ends up leaving her pregnant, and she gets heartbroken. She dies giving birth to Voldemort. So in the book, when we finally see Dumbledore's memory of the first time he meets Tom Riddle asks him, which one of my parents is the wizard? Which one has magic? And he says, I think it's my dad. It has to be my dad because my mom wouldn't die if she's a witch. She wouldn't have left. And that's sort of the first clue that he's afraid to die. And that's where his obsession with immortality and the Horcruxes comes from. Also from the memories, we see that all the Horcruxes have meaning. The ring was his grandfather's, who he got it because he's a descendant from the Peverell family, who were some of the original wizards. The locket was Salazar Slytherin's. The diary was obviously his. And we see that he wanted something from all the Hogwarts founders because it's such a big piece of magical history. So it doesn't ever really tell that it's Hufflepuff's cup and Ravenclaw's diadem that are a couple of the other Horcruxes. But in one of the memories, it's showing that he's sort of obsessed with finding things that belong to them. It's not like the Horcruxes are these random things. Those are the issues that I have from the memories, and I think they should have delved a lot more into his past, because as of right now in the movies, Voldemort's just the bad guy for no reason at all other than he wants power. In the books, he's a real person. Like, he's just scared to die, and he's doing everything he possibly can to get as much power as he can so that he can live forever. He has a quote of them in the movie saying, "Only I can live forever." So I think showing a little more of that background is really important to see where he comes from. He actually has a reason why he's evil. In the Half-Blood Prince, in the movie, we never actually get background on the Half-Blood Prince himself. There's a scene at the end where Snape says, "I'm the Half-Blood Prince," and that's the end of it. In the book, Hermione is doing all this research trying to figure out who it could be, and she runs across an old article, I guess, from the school about a girl who's very good at potions, very smart, and her last name is Prince. Well, the boys right away just say, no, it's not a girl. They kind of put that on the back burner of the storyline, and Hermione's still trying to figure this out, but no one's really listening to her. And at the end, when it's the big reveal that Professor Snape is the Half-Blood Prince that wrote all these spells, wrote all this stuff, Harry tries to use the Septicembra curse on him, the thing that he did on the Malfoy that had him all bleeding and end up in the hospital. Snape says, "You can't use one of my spells on me. I'm the Half-Blood Prince." And then Hermione, digging in a little more, finds out that Snape is indeed a half-blood, and his mother was the girl that she'd found this article on from however many years ago. And I think that's just a better narrative than just randomly, "I'm the Half-Blood Prince." There's actually background of why this is his nickname. And my final issue that I had with number 6 is the final battle at the end of the book. In the movie, Harry chases Snape and Bellatrix and all these other Death Eaters through the castle, and the biggest thing they do is light Hagrid's hut on fire, and Bellatrix destroys the windows in the Great Hall. In the book, it's an actual fight scene. So it's obviously not as big as the Battle of Hogwarts from number 7, but we have Bill Weasley, and that's where he gets bit and turned into a part werewolf or whatever. All the Weasleys come and fight for the school. Luna Lovegood's there, Neville Longbottom, Hermione and Ron and Ginny. They're all there fighting for their school, rather than this very anticlimactic chase through the castle. This was my least favorite of all the movies. I was very disappointed in that ending. I was really hoping for this big battle. Like, I liked reading about it, and I wanted to see it on screen, and just never happened. And now we come to the conclusion. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. The last two movies, I think, really wrapped up the series pretty well, but could have done a lot better. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the memories from Snape, from movie number 8. In the memory, we see that Snape and Lily were friends, and James kind of had a crush on Lily, and that's one of the reasons that Snape really didn't like James Potter, but it never really says what happened that dissolved this friendship. I was talking earlier in number 5 about how Lily came to Snape's defense and he ended up calling her Mudblood. That's the moment that ruined their friendship, and she stopped hanging out with him even when he tried to apologize in one of the memories that they show in the 7th book. But she's just not having it. Like, you don't call your best friend names like that. It's just no. So I think they should have touched on that relationship a little more. And also, in the memory, there's a little more reason why Petunia Dursley hates Lily Potter. In the 5th book, when Harry's been kicked out of Hogwarts for using the Patronus charm against the Dementors, Vernon Weasley asks what the hell is a Dementor, and Petunia is the one that knows what they are. And she says very spitefully, I heard him telling her about it. And for readers like me, you're automatically going to assume James Potter. But in the book, in number 7, when we're going through Snape's memories, we found out Snape and Lily were best friends. They used to hang out even with Petunia around. And Severus Snape was the one that was telling Lily about Dementors, and that's where Petunia hears the term and knows what they are. And also, in the memories, Petunia didn't want to be left behind. She wanted to go to Hogwarts to be with her sister, but she can't because she's a muggle. And that's sort of where her hatred of all things magic comes from, is she feels rejected. Number 7, the memories are very important because it shows that these people that we've spent 7 books hating are really good people, and they've actually done a lot for Harry, a lot for Lily. Petunia loves Lily. Despite everything, it's her sister. Snape loves Lily because he's been in love with her since he was probably like 10. And I think the memories, without having them in the movie, just failed to show that these relationships are very meaningful to these characters that were up until now very one-dimensional. Another important issue that should have been discussed was Dumbledore's duel with Gellert Grindelwald, who was a dark wizard in Bulgaria area, but he never comes into power because Dumbledore stops him. This whole account of the duel is really important because they were friends who were obsessed with finding the Deathly Hallows, the 3 magical things that can stop death. So the wand, the cloak, and the resurrection stone. Dumbledore was a kid. He was obsessed with finding it. And again, from number 1, when I was talking about how Dumbledore had the cloak, but he doesn't need one to be invisible, he suspected that this cloak is one of the 3 Deathly Hallows. And he wanted to see if he's right. And that's why, on the night Harry's parents died, they didn't have the invisibility cloak. It was James Potter's cloak that had been passed down through however many generations until it finally reaches Harry. Normal invisible objects from the Harry Potter world would have lost that power by then. But because this was fashioned from Death himself, it's indestructible. It's going to be an invisibility cloak forever. And that was sort of Dumbledore's first clue that this thing that he'd been obsessed with when he was a kid is true. And I think that's, again, it gives a little more dimension to this character that we've spent however many books, many years getting to know, and we think he's like this perfect professor, but he's got some skeletons in his closet. So I think that would have been pretty good thing to have in there. A little thing that I saw from the movie that was different from the book was when Wormtail in number 7, the end of Deathly Hallows Part 1, Dobby, like, kills him or something. That was a little ambiguous from that movie scene. In the book, Wormtail was letting them go, and that magical hand that Voldemort gave him turned on him, and he ended up dying from this magic because he had a conscience for a second. Like, this kid was his best friend's son, and he was gonna let him go. And that's where he dies. So I think the hand scene was little, but kind of important. Another thing from the movie that kind of annoyed me was in part 2 when McGonagall says, "Take all the Slytherins to the dungeon." This is a little annoying just because she would never say that. She's not the kind of person who's going to lock up innocent people. And I get most Slytherins are not innocent, but some of them are. And in the book, she gives everybody in the castle the option to leave, stay and fight with them, or get locked up, including the Slytherins, including Slughorn, who is a coward, and for a second he actually considered leaving, but he made this big gesture to stay, and he says, "Not all Slytherins are bad." And I think McGonagall in the movie locking them up kind of negates that. The final thing that annoyed me was the very end of the movies with the Elder Wand. In the movie, Harry snaps it and throws it off the bridge, which, okay, I get that, no one can use that magic anymore, but now he doesn't have a wand. In the book, he uses the Elder Wand, which is the most powerful wand in existence, to fix his own. And I think it's just kind of weird that he would just throw the wand away without having a replacement. So that's sort of my thing. Alright everyone, thanks for watching. That's part 2 of my Harry Potter discussion. If you have any other ideas for book movie adaptations you think I should do, go ahead and leave a comment, or you can always tweet me at Niki Sees Books.